back to League of Legends Anonymous Podcast, episode 1 of the LCS version of the podcast. I'm here with Danger. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing great. What a great week of LCS games to go through.
Especially because they're in NA, so you know they're
Yeah,
real high intensity.
just the top quality.
All right, so what week was last week? Was it week 8?
Yes, it was week 8.
All right, so at the end of week 8, I'm just going to run through the standings real quick. You have TL locked in for first. So they automatically get a bye. C9's in second, TSM's in third. Uh, Second place is still up for grabs for TSM. I think they need to win out, and C9 needs to drop
Needs to
another
lose a
game.
couple, right? Yeah.
And then I guess it goes into tiebreaker then.
Yep.
FlyQuest is in fourth. GGS is in fifth. CLG, Echo Fox, and Optic are tied at six. Clutch Gaming at ninth, and 100 Thieves is already out of playoffs at 10th.
Man, have they fallen.
They've been falling ever since they got rid of Medios, to be honest.
Very true. It has been a sad, especially with all the hype coming into this season with everyone they picked up, and then just to perform as poorly as you could possibly imagine.
Speaking of poor play, they played the first game of day one against FlyQuest. Obviously, FlyQuest wins.
Yeah,
Afro,
and
go ahead.
yeah, go ahead. No, yeah. I was just gonna say, I think exactly where you are. Afro started off the game in not good form.
Well, it's just typical Afro for him this season. He dies at level 1 in Tribush. So he's like sitting in Tribush, and then the second he like walks out and loses vision on it, the Rakan Zaya come in, and then he walks back into it, and he doesn't expect them to be there since he has already walked out of it, and he dies for first blood. There's not really much that I picked out of this game that was really like crazy, considering it's a 100 Thieves game.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there. I feel really bad for Someday. I think that he's playing really good League of Legends, at least as far as LCS is concerned, and there is just nothing going on in any lane or jungle that could possibly help him out. We'll talk a little bit more about Wild Turtle after the second game, but Wild Turtle had an excellent game, huge CS numbers, well played on the Zaya. But really, everyone played pretty decent this game. Pole Belter had a zero death day, so that's always a good day for Pole Belter on the block.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Pobelter. I know you're not a big fan of him, but I like him as a mid laner.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit that. So when coming into the season, I looked at FlyQuest roster and I was like, oh, I really like their roster except for Poe Belter. I don't think that's going to go well for them. And he's played much above my expectations. So I've been impressed with his play this season. To me, he's just always been the player on the team that doesn't seem to stand out. But he's had multiple good games this season. So maybe the POB's turning me around a little.
I think like where POB comes in handy is he's just really smart, and he's not like a mid laner that requires a lot of resources, which I think is something that's pretty easy when you talk about like mid laners. You think of like Bjerg's, and he used to like get flamed for being the carry, and he got flamed a lot last season with TSM not playing well. That he needs to be the one playing assassins and playing the hard carries. You got Jensen, who I think everyone just kind of considers, a big 1v9 mid laner playing with stuff like LeBlanc's, like the flashy stuff. I think POB is just like really good at playing that for the
Controlled
team.
style,
Yeah,
more.
but he
Yeah,
can
and
still play the other stuff.
yeah, I think that's fair. Like I said, I think that he's had a very good season. So, but yes, 100 Thieves surprisingly lost for the umpteenth time. It feels like. So, um, what was the next game? Was that
It was
TSM GGS?
TSM versus Golden Guardians, which this was TSM's last week was really bad. They did go 2-0 last week, but they weren't like clean games. But this week, especially this game, they drafted for early, GGS drafts for late, and TSM just completely steamrolls them.
I mean, they smashed them. I thought this was going to be a really good game. I thought GGS had been playing pretty well. I thought TSM had been playing pretty well, and I thought this might be the game of the day. And instead, TSM just rolled over them. I mean, they won quick, right? I don't have the time here, but they were up like 15K by the end of the game. It wasn't it wasn't close from the start. Every lane won. There was a one death on their part, and it was a Cadian, and he was 5-1-7 overall. So it was it was not pretty. Every lane lost. Nothing looked good for Golden Guardians, which I was really surprised with because I felt they've been picking up play recently.
And I don't even think that this was them playing bad. I think they just got outdrafted for the game. I think normal NA meta against a team that's not TSM, I think they win that game because I do think they're playing well. But there was an interview with Anero. I can't remember if it was on the dive or if it was just something afterward, where he did not expect TSM to come out that hard and crush that early, and he just kind of like tipped their hat, which as a TSM fan, puts a smile
And
on my
TSM's
face.
not usually a quick starter, so that makes a lot of sense. And so they were probably playing around what they had scouted, and TSM did a really good job of changing up their plan. And I agree. They stomped. They played their game very well, and they just rolled through this game.
I think
They
TSM is, despite having some of the longer game times, they're one of the few teams right now who is trying to match that early game aggression. And if it doesn't work well, I feel like the reason that their games are going so long is because they're good at turtling and they can still bring the game back despite, you know, falling behind early.
and I think that all comes from the draft, right? Because to turtle, you need to have certain things available to you. I watched. I think it was a game from uh, the next set of games the next day, Sunday, where a team couldn't come back because they had literally zero wave clear. It was like an Akali and a few other a mid laner that didn't have a ton of wave clear, and all you were sitting there looking at was just death, and that's all they could do because there was no way to come back. They were like either we steamroll or we die. And so I agree. I think TSM does a good job of drafting smart, and then if something doesn't go their way, they're able to adjust. And they have a few tools in their box to be able to do that. And so they have been playing well recently. And this game was probably one of their cleanest games of the season. It was an absolute stomp of a team that was playing pretty well.
Game three of day one was Echo Fox versus C9. C9 brings back Golden Glue. I think you're gonna see that probably. If I had to guess, they'll probably bring him back one more time this weekend, as they get ready to use their 7 man in playoffs. Uh, this was Phoenix playing on Azir.
And popping
Phoenix,
off.
Phoenix. When you think of Phoenix, not everyone thinks of as Azir, but when you go back, you see. I think he had a 1v3 or a 1v4 under tower this game, and he's done it before but he was bot lane. Like you'll see the highlights where he just outplays. It was like a 1v4 on his year, and it's like you don't think of Phoenix as this 1v9 mid
Not at
laner,
all.
but that champion he just gets.
Yeah, and it worked really well. This was a pretty good game. It was decently back and forth,
Yeah,
but it was. I think Phoenix was the main difference. Uh, their comp worked well together. With Solo was on Vladimir, and I have to give Solo a little bit of credit. I thought he was terrible last season. Like
hmm
one of the worst top laners I had seen. And what I didn't realize, and when I looked back at a lot of the games, is he was left on an island and he was never even like considered like to help with. They just throw him on some tank and they just sit him up there by his lonesome, and then he'd get down in CS and he'd get ganked and he would die. And I think Solo has actually played a pretty good season for Echo Fox, much better than I thought the last season went for him. So I've been decently impressed with him. But the Vladimir with the Jarvan engage and the Braum disengage for when they come back, I thought worked really well together, and their team fights played out pretty decently.
think another thing, Apollo, I'm pretty sure didn't die at all this game. He was playing Jinx, and Sneaky plays Vayne. And I'm really, it's gonna be a thing that comes over as we talk about a couple more games, but I really don't like seeing NA80 carries play Vayne because they're just picking it to pick it. They're not
Right,
picking
and
it
there's
for
not a plan
anything.
behind it.
No.
This actually might have been the game where look at their wave clear on this team. It's Licorice was on Aatrox, a Golden Glue was on Akali, and Sneaky
Yeah,
was on
Sneaky's on
Vayne.
Vayne.
So you have literally no wave clear. So like once you start turtling down, there's nothing you can do. Like once they get Baron, they just walk down and there's just no wave clear. So then Scaren's on Rek'Sai and Zazel, the supports on Galio. You have zero wave clear on that team. So it makes it very difficult to do anything against Apollo on Jinx with the rockets out, right? She's going to
Hmm.
take a tower in 7 shots, and she can just do that because you're nowhere close to range.
Yeah. C9's shining light, and what I think kept him in this game is Svenskeren played super, super well this game. Golden
I,
Glue
I
played
like I
pretty
like his
well.
Rek'Sai. I do.
Yeah.
I mean, Rek'Sai is a strong champ right now, so it's a solid pick. But he utilized his mobility very well. He got around. He bothered Rush constantly.
Mm.
I agree. I think Svenskeren kept them in this game, and Sneaky on the vein. If you could have ever gotten to a point of a really solid engage, that he might have been able to do something. But because of their short range, Svenskeren, I'm pretty sure drafted or built pretty damage wise because that's normal on Rek'Sai.
Hmm.
Means that once they go in, they were just getting blown up, and then you had Phoenix on Azir and then Hakuo on Braum for the disengage when they would come in. So it was very difficult for them um, to get in there with those short range champions.
Yeah, and I think Golden Glue played fine. I don't know how much I like Akali as a mid lane pick, especially into something like Azir. I think in order to win that lane, you have to get you have to get a lot of jungle attention.
Yep.
Uh, and Akali did get buffed, but I don't know.
I don't mind Akali as a mid pick if your top pick has a good amount of wave clear. Um, I just don't think the Aatrox wave clear when you're under tower and on the defensive is that good.
Yeah, this was also Echo Fox's first Saturday win.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah,
I did not realize that. Good on him.
the rush curse is dead of Rush only winning on Sundays.
The meme has been killed.
Game four, we can pretty much blow by this.
Yeah.
Team Liquid versus Clutch. Team Liquid smokes them. They get every dragon. Smithy
Couple
plays
barons just
super
because they
well.
weren't playing super clean, so they didn't finish it after the first one.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Clutch got a two, I think, or three towers. They got a few kills, but that's only because Liquid was playing aggro in their fights.
Doublelift plays Vayne, but he's not really like he didn't win him this game by any
No,
means.
and actually, like Vulcan plays a pretty good Alistar. I
Vulcan's
was gonna say,
Alistar is actually disgusting.
yeah, the moves he was making were sick. Even in the Lost, like watching Vulcan play Alistar, I would suggest it for people if you play Alistar, because it was pretty awesome. It was really clean.
He reminds me of watching Zazel and Alistar last season. Like Zazel's Alistar last season was by far his best champion and really fun to watch.
Yep, and it's not even close for Vulcan this season too. It's also Alistar.
I guess that's just what happens when you play on the team for the first time.
Yep,
You
you
just
pull
play
out your Alistar
Alistar
and
and
look good.
pop off. Uh, Game five. This game was pretty like interesting. It was pretty back and forth. CLG
It
versus Optic. I don't know if it was a good game in terms of skill.
it was painful for me to watch, and the reason is if you watch this game, what you'll see is NA Jace Darshan picks him, right? So you're just assuming Jace is going to get killed and do nothing, but in this world, Wiggly camps Dokla, and he camps him to the point where at one point I believe it's 70 CS to 130, and they take first turret top. Darshan and Wiggly do. And while all of this is going on, you're thinking, okay, well, there's two top the entire first 15 minutes. So something must be going on in the other lanes, and you would be wrong. Nothing is going on in any of the other lanes. Meteos is poorly farming his jungle. He's not ganking, and there's just farming going on in bot lane, and Stixay is actually out farming Arrow. So what you get is just a miserable game for Dokla. I felt so bad for him. He literally at one point had to stand all the way back at his second tower so that he avoided getting dove by Wiggly and Darshan as they were just standing in between proxying the waves.
And the real sad part about this game is they didn't even win it super quick.
No, like they had this huge lead and then they just didn't do shit with it for so long.
Like you're literally playing a 4v4 because Darshan is actually able to match the split. And not only is he able to match it, he's able to destroy it. Because Yorick is down, he's died, he's lost turret, he's lost tons of CS, and the game still ends up going to the point where it's a 4v4 at Dragon, at Elder Dragon, and Dokla's soloing Baron.
Yep.
Darshan TP's to Dragon, and even without the TP, I'm pretty sure CLG still wins because they have just a better 4v4. Because
Yep.
they have Sivir Victor. And it's just kind of like, well, you're fighting in choke points around Dragon. There's almost no way you
This
lose.
this game got dragged along because of CLG's poor decision making because they were way up, and Optic got three Barons on a team that had no presence top lane. Like that should never happen. I believe the first one was a steal and the second one was just a burn, but it was uh it was a poorly played NA game, and only watch it if you want to feel some pain.
Reminds
It
me of my
was
solo queue games.
Yeah, it was very similar. NAJ's running rough shot, giving up 60 CS and then doing literally nothing.
Speaking of CLG, they're the first game of day 2, and they versed TSM. The only real crazy thing about this game is Darshan picks on hit Nico top
Yep.
into Broken Blades Vlad.
And I'm pretty sure this is hot fixed
Yeah, this is
on hit Nico
after
top.
Nico got nerfed to where her W doesn't proc twice on an auto when it has
And
like.
he pressures Broken Blade in a ton at the start of the game. He was up, I want to say, like 20 or 30
Oh,
CS.
he was up a ton. He was up 20 to 30 CS as well as like 3 plates, which is like 500 gold,
Yep.
something like that.
And then just does nothing with it. It's like it's almost exactly like last game, only they wound up winning that one. But Darshan picks a lane bullies his way up, and then as soon as the other big thing that was going on though is on the other side of the map, you had Acadian doing work in the lanes. He went up like 4-0 really early, and that on a nocturne can be
Which
devastating.
is crazy because he lost his flash level 1. He got pressured
Yep.
off his blue buff. Wiggly had like a 3 or 4 camp advantage on him before Nocturne's
Yeah,
first back.
Wiggly got both crabs,
And he
and
got double crab.
yeah, and so he had basically nothing to start the game except for then he decided, okay, well then I'll try a few ganks, and they worked out pretty well. Bjergsen had a very good game on Lissandra, though I don't think that's all that difficult. It is Lissandra.
He did go 2-0 on Lissandra.
Yep. So huzzah, you've won on Lissandra, who, in my opinion, is in definite need of nerfs. Her AOE damage in team fights is just disgusting with her passive.
Yeah.
And she's so safe in lane with aftershock and everything. It's uh it's a pretty safe pick right now. I'm surprised you're not seeing more bans of it.
It's just really strong. And I think the reason that CLG suffers so much this game is when you pick a split push, like on hit Nico, your way of creating pressure to keep Broken Blade's teamfight champion out of it is to create so much pressure that they have to send 2 to you. But when you playing with a Nocturne, it's so easy to answer that split because you don't
And
have the
that's what they
push
did
through vision.
over and over again. Every time she started pushing up, Acadian jumped on, killed. And at that point, Acadian could solo Darshan, even though Darshan had a high CS and a lot of money. It didn't matter because he just saved his shield for when Nico would ult, and there you go, dead.
And another, the only reason Darshan looked at all like he could play Nico is when he was autoing. He looked terrible using his ulti in team fights. He just missed it. I think he missed it two or three times,
Yeah,
and
where he just he'd start walking up, and
and
then the
then
ult would go off and not
and he's
hit a
just
single
nowhere.
person. Yeah,
He
yep, I
just played
recall
it
that.
so bad, and like just in general, it's crazy. I'd be surprised how much longer he lasts in LCS.
Yeah, me as well. I don't like him the top lane. I think that it's a definite weak point. I think Power of Evil's actually quite good. I don't think that you see that a lot because it's tough, but I still think PoE's a very solid mid laner.
Yeah, I mean
And I
he's
don't think Six A and Bifrost is a bad bot lane. I think there are games that they can play pretty well.
yeah. I mean I thought they played pretty well this game.
Yeah,
I mean when you have one of the worst junglers in the league and a top laner who isn't really that great, it's really hard to win mid.
right. Because the jungle's coming often.
Mm-hmm. Game two, Liquid vs FlyQuest. This game was so fun to watch.
It is the game of the week, hands down. If you're going to watch one game this week, absolutely watch Liquid versus FlyQuest.
So you
Where do we
have,
even start?
well, I think you start early. Santorin's on Skarner, Xmithy's on Rek'Sai, and I think it's after like the very first pathing. So Xmithy pushes in at Skarner at his red buff and forces Skarner back. So Santorin's in his head. He's like, all right, well, my whole top side's gone. I'm going to go bot side and take his chickens
Oh,
and at least get
this was
something
next
out of it.
level thinking,
This
right?
is why Smithy is one of the best, is the best jungler in NA, and it's not even like close.
And has been for a couple years now, in my opinion. Back to his time with what was the now defunct team,
CLG?
Immortals, was it?
Oh, Immortals.
Yeah, so back when he was with Immortals, I even then thought Xmithy was the best
He's
jungler, and
just so smart. And I love this game because I think you have the two best junglers going at it. So
I'd agree.
Xmithy also then rotates down and kills Santorin on the Raptors. And you see Santorin in the player cam, it's like, oh my god.
Because he never would have thought that's where he would have gone next. So he had
Because,
stolen his red, right? Or
mm-hmm,
yeah, he pushed him out from red. Then you think he's gonna go scuttle, then his blue, but instead he goes scuttle and then comes down to his own raptors. It's
well,
really
I think there he's thinking, all right, well, he's just gonna take my chickens and my Krugs, and then take like whatever's left in his top side,
yep.
and then it's
And
just
then
like,
Xmithy just I mean it really is very very well played by Xmithy and puts Skarner. You don't want to be. I think it was like 12 CS to like 26 at the start of the game.
yeah, which is, it just delays you. But Santorin saves his flash because he's dead no matter what, which
Yep,
they talked
which was
about,
very
which is
smart.
very smart because having that flash when you're level 6 is really important. So this game goes back and forth a lot. Uh, what's his
It,
name?
it was good play in each lane. I feel like at the start, Impact was bullying in Viper, and Viper did a good job of absorbing that, and then still CSing well under turret. And the bot lane was pretty even throughout the start of the game. Wild Turtle was doing very well with getting some klepto stacks on as Double Lift was doing good farming on Vayne because there wasn't a whole lot of pressure from the Braum and the Ez.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really they're not at the start a great all in move against a Vayne. So and then Pobelter and Jensen were trading a lot in lane.
Yeah,
And
Jensen's
that was
on
a
LeBlanc and
yep.
Beeb's on Corki, which Corki is super scary when you get late game. And he,
2 3 can be very dangerous. Like rapid fire cannon. I think he went with an early 13 paused with shield
Hold
on.
on,
I'm
hold
like,
on. You're cutting out real bad.
oh, you're fading out there, Astros.
Alrighty. Hello.
Hello.
I don't know what happened. Hold on, let me reconnect.
So are we still taping right now?
Yeah, we're still live.
All right, don't worry, guys. Just a few technical difficulties. We're still going. So I don't even know if you heard anything I said because Astros is the one recording this.
No.
Okay, good. Talking to myself, no big deal. Um, it basically just said Pobelter went with an early defensive item, which helped him against Jensen and Impact, and helped him throughout the game. But then he spec'd in the damage. So once he hits that 2 item spike, he's doing a decent amount. Once he's doing 4, he's doing a ton. Same with Ez, Wild Turtle on Ez. But it was a lot of back and forth throughout the game. I think it ended even in kills.
This
But
game was really fun to watch. Viper hits a really nice flank onto double left with the Aatrox,
that was
and
huge.
I think a big thing about this was so not only does FlyQuest have double 80 carry comp with the Ezreal and Corki, uh, JJ is on Rakan, who is super squishy. So you'll see him dive in and hit his combo, but he gets so like he takes so much damage back that it's really hard for them to win the fight.
Well,
And
and the game was helped decided by Core JJ getting caught out by Santorin. So even though Santorin has a terrible, score line of like 0-4-7, that that move got them Baron, and they only needed one Baron to be able to do the damage that they needed to break into the base because of that double AD comp, right? They just slaughter turrets.
yeah,
Um,
and Jensen just couldn't blow up either POB or Turtle. Despite Turtle not going the double tier build and having the shield, it's it was a really fun game to watch.
yeah, it was. I honestly thought it was pretty well played by both teams.
Yeah.
Just a little bit better macro from FlyQuest, and they played to their win condition very well, which was Santorin gets a pick, and then you have outpoke damage, and you can, as soon as they come in, so as soon as Jensen would come in, you would often see JJ throw out the Braum ult wherever Jensen's going to give them a second to be able to do something, right? And then
Hmm.
Jensen would have to back off because he had taken a ton of damage.
Yeah.
And if you can't pop someone as LeBlanc, then you just can't do much.
Yeah. And the one thing about like Skarner is people when they play Skarner is it's like a double. It's kind of like the Malzahar of the jungle. So you force all the carries to have to buy QSS or they die. So
Yep.
even though and once they have QSS, it's not like, oh well, my champion is useless. It's like, no, you can still ult. You can ult to support. You can ult to tank. Like he
And in this
ulted
case,
Kennen
he
a
had
couple
he had a
times.
couple good options. Core JJ on Rakan, Xmithy on Rek'Sai. Those are both great options too. Still alt, even if Double Lift and Jensen get QSS, or even Impact, right?
Yeah,
Even if it comes down to the top laner. So yeah, literally everyone in this game needed a QSS to be able to make Santorin not valuable.
really really fun game to watch. Highly recommended. Unlike the other one, Game 3.
Game 3, do not recommend unless you like Echo
Watching
Fox, which I
or
do. So
if you like watching 100 Thieves lose, then I recommend it.
oh, 100 Thieves. It's
Ah.
just a painful season.
All right, ready? This will be the fastest one we go through. So, 100 Thieves. Apollo wins lane. Solo plays good on Vlad, and yeah, that's it.
Yep.
They just
Enjoy.
win. Echo Fox or 100 T literally just rolls over.
100T didn't even take all 3 turrets on the outer ring. They took 2. So
It's,
that lets you know how far they got into Echo Fox's
what
grill,
what
which is not at all.
what a good team this year.
0 dragons to 4, 0 barons to 1. Zero inhibitors, two towers, three kills though.
Ooh. Uh, Game four I thought was pretty fun to watch too. C9 versus Optic. So
Yeah, I'd say this was a pretty good game too.
they bring Niski back in for this game. Akali gets picked again, but it's for Licorice, and Licorice does like his Akali, and I
Yeah,
enjoy watching his Akali.
it's a pretty clean Akali
There
as
was
far as Akalis go currently. I still don't love the pick. I don't. I think you. I think there are other things that could have worked in this team
no for sure,
better, but it worked for them. Obviously, they ended up C9 did end up winning, but um, I I I, I don't love the Akali pick, but it did
hmm
work. He played it well for what he did. I
and
think Svenskeren was the big difference at the start.
Sven and Niski popped off on Talia too, which is one of his comfort picks like Zoe.
Hmm.
There was a couple mid game fumbles where you see them like one gets caught and then Zazel goes in, or Zazel gets caught, and then it's like, oh, well, I guess I have to fight. And then like two more get caught, and then Licorice is like, well, I'm here. I don't want to. I gotta try and get something back, and then they die, and it's like, and at that point, I'm like, they might just lose this game.
Right. It looked like they were trying to throw when they were up by quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Optic plays the Skarner Thresh combo, which is really disgusting because
it's really fun to watch.
you can Skarner R and then take a Thresh Lantern, and the guy just flies across your screen.
But for them, they only got to do it once,
I
unfortunately.
think they did it twice, but
Oh, did they? Maybe twice. I
this
can only remember one pulling them back behind their turret. But
yeah, tier two in mid.
yep, that's the one I recall. You got Crown on Lissandra. Lissandra always plays decent, so that's not a big surprise. But really, Meteos got pretty hard out jungled. Is what it really boils down to. Um, I think that's pretty clear cut. But I was impressed with Niski's Talia. It was a well played Talia. He was doing a shit ton of damage.
I really wish they brought. Optic brought in Dardoch for this game. I think when you're playing against Svenskeren, you really need that early aggression that Dardoch
Yeah,
brings. And I love Medios as a jungler. He's like a really fun player to watch, and he's good. But I just don't think he has the early game like aggression to try and keep Sven down. Because if you get Sven to the point where he's just inting, it makes the game so much easier.
right. And if you can keep Nocturne from early kills, he doesn't snowball like that. But he got a couple of early kills, and then Sven ended 8-0-8. He was dominant.
Yeah,
And I like
really.
the Nocturne pick right now. I think you'll see that it appears to be winning a decent amount. I
Yeah, I
think.
was really hesitant in the TSM pick when they picked it because I think it's really hard to play Nocturne into such an early game champion like Rek'Sai, but it proved me wrong.
Yeah, if you go Lethal Temple Nocturne, he can be pretty scary early,
Yeah,
which I think is what they did. I'm pretty
it's
sure.
pretty much what you go on them. GGS versus Clutch.
This
Oof.
game wasn't bad.
This game was really fun to watch.
This was a pretty good game.
I think Clutch Gaming wins this game if they ban out the Tom Kench.
Yep, because Tom Kench Jinx is very very dangerous.
So you have Nocturne on Clutch, you have Syndra on Clutch, and your main focus is the Jinx. And when you Nocturne ulti on the Jinx, gets Tom Kench eaten. When you Syndra
Hmm.
ult the Jinx, it gets Tom Kench eaten. Not only that, Tom Kench is by far Olay's best champion this split.
Yep, without a
He's
doubt.
he it's it just works for him.
Tom Kench, to me, if you don't have first pick, should be permaban. He is someone who just completely changes the way that you have to play the game, and he's strong right now. He's strong in multiple regions, not just in NA. And it's for this exact reason. Definitely like just popped off. He was 9-0-5. Like he was just always protected. So they never cashed in on any of those bounties because every single time you thought definitely was in trouble, Ole would like. I saw Ole did a couple of like flash eats
Hmm.
where like just saving his ass out of nowhere. Um, he played a really good game. Ole did, and definitely benefited from it without a doubt.
Yeah, I think definitely is like a fine AD carry. I don't think he's like he's probably middle of the road.
Yeah, I would agree.
But if you're playing a late game champion like Jinx and you're 8-0, it's like, oh, it's pretty hard to lose that one.
I, I guess I'm doing all right when I can switch to Rocket and chunk anyone on their team because they didn't, except for maybe Vulcan. But I mean, it was Lysandra, Nocturne, Syndra, and Kaisa, right? So for one, he outranges all of those with his Rocket, and for two, he was doing a third of their health with one attack. So at that point, there's just not much they can do. They played some team fights pretty well. Demonte played a really good Syndra.
Yeah.
Um, he had a couple of really key stuns. Um, he was doing very well. It's just it was tough to go against that Jinx because he couldn't do anything.
Yeah. So where Clutch really like shows well is they have this really one of a kind thing where they're still able to play the Irelias, the Yasuos, all of that stuff bottom with Piglet,
Hmm.
and it auto forces you to either ban it or you gotta try and play against it.
Yeah, Piglet's been doing really well on Aurelia. I think he was really strong last week. I think he got him both games.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that's something that Clutch is at a big advantage of, that they're able to play that because they force bans and they leave power picks up. The only problem is if you leave power picks up and you're not willing to play against it and you ban it, then you lose your ability to ban people's champions like Ole's Tom Kench
Right.
and stuff like that.
I agree. I think Clutch needs to play around that because I think that's their best chance for wins. What are we looking at playoff wise? Because next week is the last week of the split, right?
Correct.
So I know you went through the standings at the start. So Liquid's one, C9's two, TSM's three, and GGS is four. No, FlyQuest is
Flies
four.
for.
And then five and six will get into playoffs, and seven, eight, nine, 10 don't. Is that correct?
Correct. So 100
So
T
then
is the only team, I believe, that is automatically out.
So who do we have at five right now? Golden Guard is at five, and then we have three teams tied at six, right?
So the only persons that's locked for playoffs is Liquid C9 TSM. The only I think Fly is now actually too. But the second place is still up for grabs between C9 and TSM. And I believe Clutch can get into playoffs if GGS goes 0-2, Clutch go 2-0. I think they play the tiebreaker, but it depends what happens between CLG Optic. So I think your top five right now are 5U teams that should be in playoffs, and out of the three teams tied for six, I think it should be either Echo Fox or Optic.
So we have Fox, Optic, and
CLG.
CLG tied. CLG has a free win though. They have 100 Thieves first
I mean,
day.
honestly, it's CLG, so any game that they're supposed to win, they're probably going to lose.
That's
So,
very true.
honestly, not surprised if they lose to 100T.
But then they play Echo Fox on the last day, which should
Which
be a really good
it's a
game.
big
And
it's a big decider.
yeah, and then well, see, Optic gets the bonus of then they get CL 100 Thieves on the last day. So,
Optic has to
um,
play TL, don't they?
no, Optic plays Golden Guardians day one, and then 100 Thieves day two. That's not a bad draw for them.
What's the
It's
schedule?
Fox. Echo Fox has to play Team Liquid day one, and then CLG day two.
All right,
So
so day one is Echo Fox, Liquid, TSM versus Clutch, CLG versus 100 Thieves, Golden Guardians versus Optic, C9 versus Fly. That should be a good game.
that should be a very good game. I
All right.
really like the way Wild Turtle's playing right now, and I'm interested to see if they continue to play around him or not. Because Sneaky has also been, I mean, as usual, has
Yeah.
had a really good split.
All right. So I think TL beats Echo Fox. TSM beats Clutch. 100 Thieves beats CLG. Golden Guardians beats Optic. FlyQuest beats C9. Those are
I
my
like that. I
predictions.
like that 100 Thieves prediction. Whenever you expect CLG to win, that's true. That's when they just fumble something fierce.
And
I
then
don't know why. So like I've never liked CLG, and
neither
I
have I.
don't know why, but it's always just been fun to watch them lose for some reason. I usually don't have. So C9's been my favorite team, but I'm more attached to players than orgs, which is different than I am in real life with sports, right? When I'm attached to miserable organizations like the Detroit Lions, and I have been for the entirety of my life, and yet I still root for them. But for some reason with esports, I've attached more to players. So like I have players that I root for, and then orgs on top of it. But I guess whenever NA gets anywhere, I always root and hope that they do something, and then they always disappoint
I think it's just
except for
because
C9. So that's probably why I like C9.
esports is just there's 5 players, right?
Right.
Pro sports teams, there's 30 players per team.
Yeah. So it's easier. It's easier to get attached to players, especially when you see them every week.
Yeah. Sunday, you got Golden Guardians versus FlyQuest. I think that's another good game.
I do too.
Uh,
You got Fox and
uh,
CLG. That could be for a spot.
yeah, don't want to talk about it. It's Sunday, so if Echo Fox plays with Rush, they should win.
Right. You just got to make
Uh,
sure to bring them out.
C9 versus Clutch. I think that might be a better game than the standings would
I
say.
bet. I bet C9 plays Golden Glue that game. Almost positive.
Yeah, I think definitely. I think the only way they don't play Golden Glue that day
Is if they might lose second
if they
seed.
lose Saturday,
Yeah.
because I'm guessing they want that bye.
Yeah.
TSM versus Liquid, which I think will be a good game.
Especially if TSM's fighting for that second spot.
I think no matter what, I think that game's just gonna be fun to watch in general. I think you have TSM who is really good at trying to force stuff early, and CLG is one of the worst teams at trying to start stuff early.
You mean Liquid?
Or yeah, Liquid. CLG's the worst at almost everything. No, I think that's gonna be a fun game. I think that's gonna be very based on the top lane for TSM and bot lane for Liquid.
And then Optic rolls through 100 Thieves for the last game of the split. And it's just a sad,
Uh,
like, little ending.
no, 100 Thieves goes to this weekend.
No way in hell do 100 Thieves go
Calling it.
2-0. Unless they do a roster swap.
No, 100 Thieves is going to
They
mark
get
my
the last
words.
game each day. That's pretty cool for them.
Mark my. It's happening.
All right, mark it down. Astro says 100 Thieves 2-0. How many wins do they have this season?
4.
They are going to
They'll have a
go ahead
50
and.
50% increase in their wins.
Hey, man, that'll look pretty decent.
I'm a prophet. I'm a prophet.
I'm looking forward to it, man. It'll be something you can brag about next week.
Unless the community tells us to never do this again.
That's true. In which case, you can just brag about it to me in Discord.
Lol. I brag about everything to you.
I know.
Alright, guys. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode of League of Legends Anonymous LCS. We don't really have a name for it.
No, it's just two guys talking about LCS. That's what we should name it. And then once we get three guys, we'll just keep it the name.
Just keep it 2 guys.
Yep.
Sounds good. So if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure to let us know. If you have anything else that you'd like, in terms of things we can talk about, let us know. Maybe what we'll start doing is, since Danger likes watching everything that's not LCS, he can pick a game per week to recommend from
Ooh, that'd be
LCK.
good. I got some LPL games for you guys that you will really understand how great League of Legends can be. I mean, LPL is the best league out there, in my
It's
opinion, for watching. LCK is still probably better at playing the game, but I mean that's pretty close now. But LPL, they play the game bloodthirsty, and I love it.
all right. You got anything else you want to say?
No, I hope you guys liked it. If you hate it, please share that too, because then we won't spend our time doing it then. So either way,
Just tell
we
us. Don't tell Papa.
yeah, yeah. Please don't tell Papa. He already makes fun of us enough. We're the two outcasts of the podcast as is. So
Have a good night, guys.
later.